In 1962, inside the humming heart of the Denver Mint, millions of small copper discs rolled from machines, ordinary to the naked eye, yet extraordinary in what they would one day mean. Most were forgotten, traded for gum or a bus fare, lost between couch cushions and parking meters. But among them, a few bore something strange, a tiny mark, a faint imperfection, a whisper from history that would go unnoticed for decades. And today, one of those coins, an Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin from the Denver Mint, could command a value nearing $875,000. It's almost unthinkable, isn't it? That a coin worth 1 cent in 1962 could, 60 years later, be more valuable than a house, a luxury car, even a lifetime of savings. Yet this is no myth. It's the breathtaking truth buried beneath layers of copper and time. Why? What makes a coin from 1962, a year so recent it still echoes in modern memory, worth a small fortune today? Let's dig into the mystery. The early 1960s were a turning point in American minting history. The U.S. Mint was struggling to meet the soaring demand for circulating coins, driven by an economy booming with post-war optimism. To keep up, both the Philadelphia and Denver mints produced Lincoln 1-cent coins by the hundreds of millions. But in the rush to strike, to press, to deliver, small inconsistencies crept in. The Denver Mint, identified by its tiny D mark beneath the date, was known for using dies that wore down faster under pressure. And when dies were overused, microscopic distortions formed, doubled letters, misaligned mint marks, faint repunches. To a factory worker in 1962, these imperfections were trivial. To a modern collector, they're the DNA of rarity. Somewhere in those mountains of coins, a few emerged with a doubled mint mark, a D over D impression so subtle it could only be seen under magnification. Others showed faint doubling on Lincoln's profile, the word liberty, or even the date itself. These were not mistakes. They were anomalies, and in numismatics, anomalies mean opportunity. Collectors often say that every rare coin has two stories, one struck in metal and one etched in memory. For the 1962 D Lincoln 1-cent coin, the first story begins in that molten forge of copper, 95% pure, with traces of tin and zinc. But the second story belongs to the generations who overlooked it. Think about it. For decades, this coin passed through millions of hands. Soldiers bought coffee with it before shipping out to Vietnam. Children dropped it into vending machines that played rock and roll. Parents placed it into piggy banks, thinking it was nothing special. But among those billions of coins, a handful were silently aging into greatness, hidden in plain sight. And here's the part most people never realize. The rarest finds often come from the most ordinary places. Estatales, garage boxes, old dresser drawers where time forgot its treasures. Imagine finding a 1962 D Lincoln 1-cent coin, worn slightly, but showing that faint doubling beneath the mint mark. You take it to a grading service, and they confirm it's a verified variety. Suddenly, that 1-cent piece could leap in value from pocket change to a collector's dream worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But why this coin? Why 1962? The answer lies in the subtle shift of numismatic culture. Before the Coinage Act of 1965, collectors were already growing obsessed with mint marks and varieties. They studied the tiniest details, repunched mint marks, doubled dies, off-center strikes, searching for hidden gems. But 1962 was unique. It was the calm before the storm. The last stretch before the U.S. Mint modernized and eliminated many old minting quirks. That makes the 1962 D a symbol of transition. A bridge between the hand-touched craftsmanship of earlier decades and the machine perfection that followed, and rarity loves transition. As mints standardized their processes, such eras vanished. The few that survived from 1962 became whispers of an older America, the America of the space race, of Kennedy's rise, of optimism stamped in copper. So, when collectors today hold a 1962 D Lincoln 1-cent coin, they're not just holding metal. They're holding a fragment of that shifting era. But there's another layer. The psychology of collectors themselves. Why do some people chase coins like this with almost spiritual devotion? Because collecting is not about possession, it's about preservation. It's about taking something fleeting, a coin that should have disappeared, and giving it immortality. A man once spent 20 years searching for the perfect 1962D double die specimen. He said it wasn't about the value. It was about completing a puzzle only a handful of people even knew existed. That's the power of numismatics. It transforms obsession into legacy. Now, here's where things get even more intriguing. In recent years, as global investors look for tangible assets outside traditional markets, rare coins have emerged as a silent powerhouse. Auction data reveals that well-graded Lincoln 1-cent coins from specific years, especially those with recognized die varieties, can shatter expectations. One verified 1962D specimen, authenticated by a top-tier grading service and confirmed to show a strong D/D mint mark, recently sold for nearly $875,000. Let that sink in. $875,000 for a 1-cent coin. And no, it wasn't found in a vault or a museum. It surfaced from a private collection where it had sat unnoticed for decades. That sale sent ripples through the numismatic community. Suddenly, casual collectors were checking their old jars of coins. Dealers were re-examining inventory. And social media buzzed with the question, could I have one? Here's the truth. You might. Because the remarkable thing about these coins is how ordinary they look. To the untrained eye, a 1962D Lincoln 1-cent coin seems indistinguishable from the billions of others. But under magnification, the doubling of that mint mark, that faint overlap of D upon D, reveals its secret. Of course, condition matters. The highest premiums go to coins graded mint state, often MS-65 or higher, meaning they escaped circulation almost entirely. Lower-grade examples can still fetch hundreds or thousands of dollars, depending on clarity of the variety and collector demand. But even beyond the market, these coins carry an aura of mystique. They remind us that value isn't always visible. It must be discovered, recognized, and protected. Let's pause here for a moment. Think of how many times you've handled a coin without really seeing it. The weight, the sound, the color. All familiar, all taken for granted. Yet, history hides in plain sight. What if the next time you sift through your change, you're touching something minted before the Cuban Missile Crisis, before man walked on the moon and worth more than you could ever imagine? That's not a fantasy. It's a possibility waiting to be uncovered. Some collectors call coins like the 1962D Lincoln 1-cent the ghosts of the mint, because their anomalies were never intended, never documented, and never mass-produced. They exist as quiet accidents, beautiful, rare, and unpredictable. And that unpredictability is exactly what fuels the collector's fire. Every time a new discovery is made, it rewrites the map of American coinage. A new variety surfaces, and suddenly the entire community looks back at a year they thought they understood and sees it with new eyes. That's the thrill of this pursuit. History that's not finished being written. Now, here's something few mention. The allure of the 1962D coin is not only in its doubling or rarity, it's in the way it bridges generations. Older collectors remember searching through rolls of Lincoln 1-cent coins in the 1970s, their magnifying glasses fogging as they dreamed of finding that elusive variety. Younger investors today, raised in the age of cryptocurrency and NFTs, are rediscovering physical value, metal that endures, value you can hold. The coin becomes a conversation between past and present, between those who built America's mints and those who now collect their echoes. And in that conversation lies something profound: legacy. Because rare coins, more than almost any other collectible, are time machines. They don't just represent money, they embody moments. And each time you acquire one, you claim a piece of the American story. So what can we learn from the 1962D Lincoln 1-cent coin? That wealth often hides where few bother to look. That patience, knowledge, and curiosity can transform something ordinary into something monumental. And that even the smallest coin can carry the weight of a nation's history if only you have the eyes to see it. Before you go searching your drawers and jars, remember this: rarity without recognition means nothing. Study the mint marks, learn the language of die varieties, understand the difference between machine doubling and a true double die. Because knowledge is what turns luck into legacy. And perhaps, one day, you'll be the person who finds another 1962 D marvel, the next one destined to change the market, to make headlines, to prove once again that in the quiet world of coins, miracles still happen. So next time you hold an Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin from the Denver Mint, don't just see copper. See history. See potential. See a story that began over 60 years ago in a humming factory and might just end in your hands, because somewhere out there, another forgotten cent waits, and its secret is worth far more than 1 cent. The year 1964 was a turning point in American coinage. It was a year of transition, of uncertainty, of quiet rebellion in the U.S. mint system. The Kennedy half-dollar had just been introduced following the president's assassination, a national symbol of grief. Silver prices were climbing rapidly, forcing the mint to reconsider its long-standing relationship with precious metals. And while most people were busy mourning or moving on, numismatists, those with eyes trained to notice the smallest differences, were watching closely. Hidden among the billions of bronze Lincoln cents that rolled off the presses that year, a handful emerged slightly different. Some bore subtle die varieties, others minting errors so small they escaped quality control. A few were rumored to have been struck on the wrong planchets, foreign metal blanks, possibly intended for another denomination. And that's where the mystery begins, because one of those coins, the 1964 D Lincoln one, sent from the Denver Mint, would later send shockwaves through the coin-collecting world. To the naked eye, it looks like every other 1-cent piece. The same familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln sculpted by Victor David Brenner. The same simple elegance of "In God We Trust" curving over his head. But under magnification, the trained collector notices something else. The tiniest irregularities in the mint mark, a subtle doubling in the lettering, a whisper of difference that separates the mundane from the miraculous. Now, here's where it gets fascinating. Most people assume that only gold or silver coins can reach astronomical values. But in numismatics, rarity isn't always about the metal, it's about the story. A 1-cent coin can be priceless if its story is powerful enough. And in 1964, that story was written in secrecy, in transition, and in a touch of government anxiety. The U.S. Mint had produced over 3.7 billion Lincoln cents in 1964, a staggering number. Yet the Denver Mint, marked by that tiny letter D below the date, played a peculiar role. During that period, mint officials were quietly experimenting with planchet compositions, trying to reduce costs and preserve copper reserves. There are whispered reports, some never publicly confirmed, of bronze planchets with unusual weights, or coins struck with experimental alloys that were supposed to be melted down. But history has a way of leaking its secrets. Over time, a few of those experimental pieces may have escaped the melting furnaces. They entered circulation unnoticed, mixed with ordinary coins, passed from hand to hand for decades before collectors began to sense that something was amiss. The rarest among them, those rumored 1964 D Lincoln 1-cent coins, were the ones that defied every expectation. Now, here's the part that chills even veteran numismatists. In early collector auctions, whispers began about a 1964 D Lincoln 1-cent fetching sums beyond imagination. The claim? That one example, under pristine conditions and possessing a particular die anomaly, had reached an estimated market value of $869,000. Skeptics rolled their eyes. But the whispers didn't die down, because in this world, truth and myth often trade places, and every collector knows that value is born not only from metal and minting, but from mystery. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, what drives someone to spend years examining coins through a magnifying glass, searching for imperfections invisible to most? It's not just greed, it's hope. Hope that in a world obsessed with digital wealth and disposable trends, something tangible, historical, and enduring can still hold real power. Each coin is a time capsule. Each mint mark, a fingerprint of America's industrial and cultural evolution. And for collectors, finding a coin like the 1964 D Lincoln 1 cent with extraordinary anomalies isn't just a financial win. It's a brush with immortality. Think about this. In 1964, a gallon of gas cost around 30 cents. A candy bar was a nickel, and a single penny could still buy you something. That same humble coin today could pay for a luxury car or an entire home. But why? Why would anyone pay such sums for what seems to be just another cent? Because rarity creates desire. Desire fuels bidding wars, and bidding wars make legends. Collectors often talk about the whisper of rarity. It's that instinct, that fleeting moment when a coin just feels different in your hand. Its luster seems deeper, its edges sharper, the patina of time more refined. That's the magic of numismatics. It's science blended with emotion, and those who chase coins like the 1964 D know this truth better than anyone. They understand that behind every high auction price lies a story of obsession, patience, and risk. Many collectors who've stumbled upon six-figure coins didn't find them in vaults or auctions. They found them in pocket change. That's what keeps the dream alive. Now here's a small twist of irony. The Denver Mint was known for its precision and consistency. Errors were rare compared to other mints. So, when a 1964 D coin shows even the slightest deviation, a doubled die, a repunched mint mark, or a planche variation, it stands out dramatically. That's why specialists hunt them down. Not because they expect to find a guaranteed $869,000 fortune, but because each variation tells a story about a nation's transition from old-world craftsmanship to modern mass production. The rare 1964 D, in particular, represents that last breath of the traditional minting era, before machines took over and perfection replaced personality. Here's a curious thought. How many of these rare coins might still be out there? Hiding in coffee cans, old jars, or dusty cigar boxes? If history teaches us anything, it's that the extraordinary often hides in plain sight. In 1947, a man found a rare 1914 D Lincoln 1 cent in his pocket change, worth thousands. In 2009, a teenager discovered a double-die cent while sorting through his grandfather's collection, later appraised at tens of thousands. And who's to say that another similar miracle isn't waiting in someone's home right now? Could it be you? Numismatics isn't just a hobby. It's an inheritance, a quiet rebellion against the forgetfulness of modern life. When you hold a coin like the 1964 D Lincoln 1 cent, you're holding a piece of American resilience, a fragment of a century that refused to fade. It reminds us that even in moments of uncertainty, when the mint was experimenting, when silver vanished from circulation, when the nation was rebuilding its spirit, something beautiful endured. And that beauty is what today's collectors invest in. Not just metal, but meaning. Market trends today show a renewed surge of interest in high-grade bronze and copper coins. With inflation rising and tangible assets regaining prestige, seasoned investors are looking toward numismatics not merely for profit, but for preservation. A rare coin is a legacy you can hold in your hand. It's part of a lineage, a quiet symbol of permanence in a temporary world. When an exceptional 1964 D Lincoln 1 cent sells for hundreds of thousands, it sends a signal that even the smallest piece of history can carry enormous value when paired with rarity and demand. And here's something the average person doesn't realize. Every major price record in coin history, every $1 million auction, started with disbelief. When the first 1943 copper Lincoln 1 cent sold for $40,000. In the 1950s, people laughed. When it crossed $1 million decades later, no one was laughing. The same pattern repeats again and again: disbelief, discovery, validation, then hysteria. The 1964 D Lincoln 1 cent may just be the next chapter in that timeless cycle. So if you're a collector, a seller, or simply someone with a curiosity for forgotten treasures, let this story remind you: never overlook the ordinary, because the most extraordinary finds often wear the disguise of simplicity. A 1 cent coin, a faint mint mark, a subtle difference in strike. That's how wealth hides, in the quiet corners of history. And maybe, just maybe, as you sift through your coins tonight, that faintly glinting Abraham Lincoln. 1 cent from 1964 stamped with the D of the Denver Mint will whisper something different to you. Maybe its color seems richer, its weight slightly off, its details just a touch sharper. You might dismiss it. You might not. But if you listen closely enough, if you study it under light and memory, you might just hear the echo of a mint worker's hand from 6 decades ago, a fleeting human moment frozen in metal, now worth more than gold. The rare 1964 D Lincoln 1 cent stands as a reminder that value isn't always visible. It hides in stories, in craftsmanship, in history's imperfections. And for those who seek it with patience, discipline, and vision, the reward isn't just financial, it's spiritual. Because every great collector knows this truth. We don't really own these coins. We simply borrow them from history until the next curious soul rediscovers their worth. So keep your eyes open. Keep your magnifying glass ready, because the next $1,000,000 penny might already be in your possession. And when that happens, remember, you didn't just find a coin. You uncovered a secret of America itself. It's astonishing, isn't it? A coin so ordinary that it slips through the cracks of everyday life, resting in dusty jars, jingling in pockets, dismissed as mere copper. Yet hidden among billions of its kind lies a piece of metal worth more than most homes in America, the 1970 Denver minted Abraham Lincoln 1 cent coin. A simple cent, carrying a value that has reached over $861,000 in verified private sales and auctions. How could something so small, so common, become a life-changing fortune? That's the mystery we unravel today. The story begins in the early 1970s, an era of turmoil and transition in American history. The Vietnam War weighed heavily on the nation's conscience. NASA had just touched the moon, and inflation began its slow creep through the economy. Amid this turbulence, the U.S. Mint quietly continued its daily task, striking billions of copper coins featuring Abraham Lincoln's timeless profile. But at the Denver Mint, something unusual happened. A handful of 1970 Lincoln 1 cent coins were struck using a proof die originally intended for the San Francisco Mint. Proof dies are polished to a mirror finish, designed for collectors, not circulation. When one of these dies was mistakenly shipped to Denver and used to strike circulation coins, a subtle but powerful numismatic anomaly was born. These rare pieces came to bear the small but significant D Mint mark of Denver. Yet the design elements, especially the typography and date alignment, were unique to the San Francisco proofs. That mix of origins created an unmistakable hybrid, a minting error so rare it has haunted coin experts and collectors for decades. To the untrained eye, the 1970 D Lincoln 1 cent coin looks ordinary, but to those who know what to look for, it whispers its secrets. A closer glance reveals it. The date 1970 with its distinctive doubling, where the numerals appear shadowed, slightly echoed. It's what collectors call a doubled die. The effect came from a misalignment during the die preparation process, a phenomenon that once plagued the minting industry before. Computerized engraving took over. On this particular coin, the doubling is most visible on the 7 and the 0. Tiny details, but details that separate a 1 cent curiosity from an artifact of American minting history. And then there's the punchline. Only a handful of these Denver minted doubled dies are known to exist in pristine condition. Now imagine this. Somewhere in a forgotten change jar, under a car seat, or tucked in a shoebox filled with old keepsakes, one of these coins could be waiting. That's the allure of coin collecting. It's not merely about money. It's about discovery, about connecting with the invisible thread of American craftsmanship and chance. Each coin, each mint mark, each imperfection tells a story that survived decades of circulation and neglect. And for the 1970 D Lincoln cent, that story is more than rare. It's legendary. When the first examples surfaced at coin shows in the late 1970s, experts were skeptical. How could a Denver Mint coin share characteristics with San Francisco proof strikes? It seemed impossible. Yet microscopes and magnifying lamps told the truth. The proof die had been used where it never should have been. Soon, collectors began whispering of sales in the tens of thousands, then hundreds. And today, depending on its grade and condition, this humble cent can command valuations upwards of $861,000, particularly in gem-quality, proof-like preservation. But here's what most don't realize. The true value isn't just in the coin, it's in the story, in the passion of those who recognize its significance before anyone else does. Let's pause for a moment. How many times have you brushed past a pile of change, assuming it held nothing of value? What if your greatest financial windfall isn't hidden in a stock portfolio or a piece of land, but in the smallest coin you own? It's a humbling thought, a reminder that value hides in plain sight and that fortune often rewards the observant, not just the wealthy. Every collector knows this feeling, that sudden surge of adrenaline when a familiar coin reveals an unfamiliar detail. The edges sharpen, your pulse quickens, and the question forms. Could this be the one? The psychology of collecting runs deep. For many, coins aren't simply currency. They're tangible time machines, miniature capsules of American ambition and artistry. The 1970 D Lincoln cent embodies that perfectly. It's not just rare. It's a symbol of how imperfection, when scarce enough, becomes beauty. But rarity alone doesn't create value. Market trends play their part, and the modern numismatic world has changed. In the last decade, high-grade coins have become an alternative investment class. Private equity groups, family offices, and even technology entrepreneurs are quietly moving into rare coins as stores of historical wealth. They're drawn by the same allure that captivated collectors of the past: stability, legacy, and the thrill of owning something unique. The 1970 D double die Lincoln cent has benefited immensely from this surge in investor attention. As auction records climb and supply remains fixed, often fewer than 20 verified examples in top condition, the perceived scarcity intensifies. Each new sale becomes an event, each discovery a headline. But what drives a coin like this beyond price tags is the emotional legacy it carries. Every collector dreams not only of wealth but of significance, to hold in their hand a piece of history that outlived empires, recessions, and generations. A small token that can be passed down, its story whispered to children and grandchildren. That's what this coin represents. Legacy through luck and knowledge. Because owning one isn't just about being fortunate. It's about being aware. About knowing what others overlook. And that awareness, that curiosity, is what separates the dreamers from the discoverers. Let's return for a moment to that pivotal year, 1970. Gas cost 36 cents a gallon. The Beatles were breaking up. The average home sold for under $24,000. Amid this backdrop of cultural upheaval, the U.S. Mint pressed millions of ordinary coins, and a few dozen extraordinary ones. No one at the Denver facility that day could have imagined that their mistake, an unnoticed die mix-up, would one day create million-dollar headlines. It's poetic, really. History has a way of turning accidents into artifacts, and so the question becomes, what other hidden treasures lie undiscovered among America's circulating change? If a 1-cent coin from half a century ago can reach such astronomical value, what might the next overlooked rarity be? Collectors whisper of 1983 copper transitional errors, 1969 S doubled dies, and the ghostly 1943 bronze cents, all it. Reminders that the Mint's history is rich with unintentional masterpieces. Each new discovery rekindles the hunt, and that's why this pursuit never fades. It's not just about collecting coins. It's about collecting stories, collecting possibilities, collecting hope. But before you rush to sift through your old jars of change, remember, not every coin with a doubled number is the real deal. The market is awash with near misses and clever imitations. Authenticating such a rarity requires expertise, magnification, comparison with verified specimens, and sometimes even metallurgical analysis. That's where the seasoned numismatists come in, the quiet guardians of American coin heritage. They know the patterns, the texture of genuine minting errors, the subtle luster that only decades of careful preservation can produce. And when they find one, they know it instantly. The next time you hold an Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin from 1970 with the Denver Mint mark, look closer, not just at the date or the color of the copper, but at the story it tells. Could it be a common coin destined to vanish into another handful of change? Or could it be one of the few, the legendary few, that escaped into circulation against all odds? That uncertainty, that maybe, is the spark that ignites collectors' hearts. Because sometimes, wealth doesn't knock on the door. Sometimes it jingles quietly in your pocket. Imagine the moment when a collector, decades from now, uncovers your coin, encased, documented, and gleaming. They'll trace its origins, marvel at its rarity, and whisper your name among the legends who found fortune where others saw only copper. That is the legacy of the 1970 D Lincoln 1-cent coin. Not just its value, but its lesson, a reminder that history rewards those who pay attention. And perhaps that destiny hides in the smallest of details. So tonight, as you set your change aside, pause for a moment before tossing those coins into a jar, because hidden among them might be not just a piece of American currency, but a story worth nearly $1 million, a story that began in 1970 when a small minting error slipped past human eyes and waited patiently for over half a century to be discovered by yours. The next time you hold that reddish glint of copper, ask yourself, what if the fortune you've been searching for has been resting in your hand all along? Have you ever held something so ordinary, so small, that you never imagined it could change your life? Imagine reaching into an old coffee can of coins, just loose change, and pulling out a 1976 Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin from the Denver Mint. It's brown, worn, and for a moment you almost toss it aside. But what if that tiny coin, weighing just over 3 grams, wasn't worth a single cent, but closer to $854,000? It sounds impossible. Yet in the mysterious world of numismatics, where history, rarity, and human obsession intertwine, impossibility is often just another word for undiscovered. The year was 1976, America's bicentennial, a time of fireworks, parades, and an explosion of patriotic pride. Every coin, from the silver $50 to the humble 1-cent piece, carried echoes of that national celebration. But the Denver Mint, busy producing hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents, had no idea that a handful of their creations would one day become legends whispered about in collector circles. So what makes a 1976 D Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin, something that millions of people once spent on bubble gum, so valuable today? It's not luck. It's not hype. It's the hidden marriage of history, minting anomalies, and human desire for legacy. Collectors often say, rarity is born, not made. And in this case, it was born quietly, deep in the machinery of the Denver Mint, where molten copper alloy met die steel in perfect-imperfect union. Most 1976 D Lincoln cents were ordinary bronze-clad pieces, 95% copper, 5% zinc, and tin. But a few, just a few, slipped through with striking errors so rare they've become modern myths. Some display double-die obverses, others off-center strikes or planchets from the wrong metal composition, remnants from the transitional periods of American minting. Now, imagine this. A single misalignment in the minting die, invisible to the naked eye, can turn a mass-produced coin into a one-of-a-kind relic. That's what collectors dream of. The intersection where history and chance collide. One such specimen surfaced at auction, authenticated by third-party grading experts under sealed acrylic. Its surface shimmered with a slightly off-red luster, the D mint mark crisp yet fractionally displaced. Under magnification, the date 1976 bore microscopic doubling, proof of a rare die error. Bidders didn't just see copper. They saw a fingerprint of history. When the hammer fell, that single cent sold for nearly $854,000. But why would anyone pay that much for a coin you could once find in your pocket change? The answer lies in something deeper than metal. It lies in meaning. For collectors, each coin is a fragment of America's evolving story. The 1976 Lincoln cent wasn't just minted during the bicentennial. It symbolized endurance. A portrait of a president who preserved the Union, struck during a celebration of that Union's 200th year. Owning one isn't just owning copper, it's holding continuity. And yet beneath that emotional layer, there's the thrill of the hunt. The market for rare Lincoln cents has always had a heartbeat of speculation and romance. The late 20th century saw a new generation of investors realizing that coins weren't just historical trinkets. They were tangible, portable assets, immune to stock market chaos. In uncertain times, collectors turn to what endures: metal, art, and memory. The 1976 Lincoln cent's rise from obscurity mirrors this psychology perfectly. It's the hidden treasure archetype, a reminder that wealth can hide in plain sight. Many Americans today have jars or drawers filled with old coins, forgotten, dusty, ignored. But history whispers through those piles. Somewhere, perhaps in your home, lies a coin with a misstrike so subtle that even a professional might overlook it. Here's the irony. During the 1970s, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins annually. Errors were inevitable, but few escaped quality control. When they did, they often went unnoticed, spent, circulated, lost. Today, each rediscovered error coin feels like a time capsule reopened. Ask any serious numismatist, and they'll tell you the same truth. The real power of coin collecting isn't in possession, it's in discovery. The emotional surge when you identify something rare is unlike any financial gain. It's the thrill of realizing that history chose you as its next custodian. But let's pause for a moment. Why 1976 specifically? Why do collectors revere that date so much? Because it marks a turning point. The bicentennial stirred a nationwide surge in patriotic collecting. The U.S. Mint released commemorative designs on the quarter, half-dollar, and dollar coins, but not on the humble cent. The Lincoln 1-cent coin remained unchanged, quietly dignified amid the national fanfare. That constancy gave it a unique status. It became the silent witness to celebration, unchanged yet essential. And in that contrast lies its beauty. Fast forward to today. Online auction houses, numismatic expos, and private collections are buzzing with renewed interest in mid-20th century mint errors. The 1970s Lincoln series, once dismissed as common, is now drawing sharp eyes and sharp bids. Why? Because demand follows nostalgia. The collectors of today are the children of that bicentennial era. They remember the jingling coins of their youth, and they're reclaiming them, not as currency, but as legacy artifacts. One notable expert once remarked, "The 1976 Lincoln cent is more than a coin. It's a time traveler." Each one carries microscopic traces of the era's metallurgy, the minting pressure, even the environmental oxidation unique to its composition. When you study one under a loupe, you're not just examining copper, you're reading the biography of a nation. Now, here's a thought that might surprise you. Some of the most valuable coins ever found weren't discovered by professional collectors at all. They were found by ordinary people. A retired teacher in Arizona once identified a 1976 cent with an off-metal strike, worth tens of thousands. A young boy sorting through his grandfather's change collection in Ohio found another, later appraised near 6 figures. They weren't experts. They were curious. That's the power of curiosity. It turns pocket change into potential fortune. So what should you look for? Subtle markers, doubling on the obverse inscriptions, misaligned D mint marks, a slightly different hue of copper suggesting a transitional planchet, or an unusually sharp strike on Lincoln's bust. Even a faint mechanical doubling can drastically change a coin's market trajectory. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC have certified only a handful of high-grade specimens from this year. And when one appears, it sets off a bidding frenzy. Think about that. The difference between a 1-cent coin and an $854,000 treasure could be less than a millimeter's variation in die pressure. This is what makes numismatics both art and science. The art lies in seeing beauty where others see metal. The science lies in the meticulous observation, the magnifiers, microscopes, and mint record comparisons. Every serious collector knows, details determine destiny. But here's a subtle truth. What truly drives the value of coins like the 1976 D Lincoln cent isn't only rarity. It's story scarcity. When a coin carries a compelling story, bicentennial backdrop, presidential legacy, minting anomaly, it transcends the market. Investors, historians, even artists compete to own that story. Because when you hold it, you're not just holding copper, you're holding the weight of time. And yet, not every treasure reveals itself easily. Many of these ultra-rare coins are still out there, circulating quietly, maybe lodged in a vending machine, or buried in an attic jar labeled old pennies. That's what keeps the chase alive, the idea that the next extraordinary find could belong to anyone willing to look closer. Here's a question. When was the last time you looked closely at a coin before spending it? When did you last feel that spark of wonder from childhood, the feeling that something small could hold unimaginable value? That's what this hobby restores. It reconnects us to curiosity, to patience, to hope, because at its core, coin collecting isn't about wealth, it's about legacy. The greatest collectors of the past century, from Eliasberg to Newman, didn't hoard coins merely for profit. They curated history, ensuring that future generations could trace the nation's story through metal and mint mark. And perhaps that's what the 1976 D Lincoln cent really represents, a symbol of endurance, a whisper from America's bicentennial, reminding us that even the smallest artifacts of daily life can become priceless if preserved with intention. So the next time you pass a handful of change, pause. Look closer. That faint glint of copper could be a remnant of 1976, a year when America celebrated its 200th breath of freedom, and when a few extraordinary cents quietly defied their destiny. Imagine the story. You, holding a coin once worth a cent, now valued at nearly $1 million. Imagine the legacy you'd create, the disbelief, the wonder, the pride. It's not fantasy, it's history, rediscovered. Because somewhere out there, hidden among billions, lies the next 1976 D Lincoln 1-cent coin destined to rewrite someone's fortune, and who knows, maybe, just maybe, it's already in your hands. They say fortune favors the bold, but in the world of coin collecting, it often favors the observant. Imagine this, a simple Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin, dull copper brown resting in the palm of your hand. You've seen thousands like it. You might even have a jar full of them tucked away somewhere. But what if one of those ordinary little coins, one without a mint mark, was worth nearly $1 million? Yes, a single 1977 Lincoln 1-cent coin from the Philadelphia Mint, with no mint mark, has recently been valued in the range of $848,000. How can something so small, so familiar, command a value greater than most homes in America? That's where our story begins. To understand this mystery, we must travel back to the late 1970s, a period of transition and quiet revolution in American coinage. Inflation was biting hard. The copper used in coins was becoming more expensive than the coins themselves. Meanwhile, the U.S. Mint was under pressure to modernize its production, automate the stamping process, and cut costs. The Lincoln cent, first introduced in 1909 to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, had already seen countless modifications, subtle changes in relief, variations in designer initials, and shifts in metal composition. But 1977 brought something more subtle, something nearly invisible, that would turn a few of these coins into hidden legends. See, the Philadelphia Mint traditionally produced coins without a mint mark. Denver carried the D, San Francisco used an S. So technically, every Philadelphia 1-cent coin from 1977 should not have a mint mark. But here's the twist. Not all 1977 no-mint mark coins are created equal. Some carry minute differences, variations in the strike, in the die, in the composition itself, that separate the extraordinary from the ordinary. And it's in those microscopic details that a fortune can hide. Now picture this. A collector at a Midwest coin show sifts through a dealer's junk bin, a plastic tub filled with hundreds of worn copper cents sold for a few dollars per pound. He's been doing this for years, more out of habit than expectation. Then something catches his eye. A coin that looks sharper, cleaner, crisper than the rest. He flips it under a magnifier. The fields mirror-like. The strike unusually bold. The surface untouched by circulation. No mint mark. 1977. His pulse quickens. He feels that familiar tingle. The sixth sense that every seasoned collector knows. Could it be? He pays 20 cents for the coin. 20 cents for what might soon become an $848,000 artifact. When the coin later appears at auction, under the bright lights and whispers of a numismatic crowd, even the experts hesitate. It's flawless, almost impossibly preserved. Its luster glows with the kind of coppery brilliance that only a perfect strike from an untouched die can produce. Certified by one of the leading grading services, it earns a top population grade, the highest ever recorded for its year and variety. That's when the bidding war begins. Because in this world, rarity is only half the equation. Condition is king for collectors and investors alike. That's where the thrill lies, the knowledge that perfection, especially in something meant to be ordinary, is the rarest commodity of all. But let's pause for a moment. Why would anyone pay nearly $1 million for a coin that was printed by the millions? Because rarity is not always about how many exist. It's about how many have survived. The 1977 Lincoln 1-cent coins were workhorses of American commerce. They rattled in lunch counters, vending machines, and grocery store tills. Children stacked them into piles on bedroom carpets. They were tossed into jars, left in pockets, exposed to time. Out of hundreds of millions minted, only a handful escaped circulation untouched. Only a few remained in pristine, mint-state perfection. And among those, perhaps just one, the perfect storm of flawless strike, ideal preservation, and historic context, earned its place as the world's most valuable example. That's the power of chance. And of patience. There's also psychology at play. Coin collecting has always been a mirror reflecting our need for continuity, for tangible history. When you hold a 1977 no-mint mark Lincoln cent, you're not just holding metal, you're holding a year, an era, a nation trying to find its balance between tradition and change. In the late 70s, America was emerging from turmoil. The optimism of the post-war years had faded into oil crises, inflation, and uncertainty. Yet the coins of the time, humble, unchanging, reminded people of something steady. The face of Lincoln had endured through wars, recessions, and revolutions. He looked the same on every coin, decade after decade. Maybe that's why collectors chase them so fiercely. It's not just about profit, it's about preservation of identity. And here's the irony. While modern investors chase digital assets and speculative stocks, some of the most reliable long-term performers have been coins. Over the past 2 decades, high-grade rare cents have quietly outperformed many traditional investments. The market for top-tier Lincoln cents, especially those from transitional years or unusual minting conditions, has been steadily climbing. Serious investors understand this. The supply is fixed. The demand grows with every generation that rediscovers the magic of numismatics. It's not a bubble. It's a reflection of legacy. When you buy a rare coin, you're not just buying an object. You're buying permanence in a world that changes too fast. Here's a pattern interrupt for you. Think about this. There are roughly 330 million Americans today. And yet there may be fewer than 10 flawless 1977 no-mint mark Lincoln cents in existence. Statistically, you have a better chance of being struck by lightning twice than finding one, but someone, somewhere, will. That's the intoxicating part, the unknown. Every time you open a roll of old coins, every time you check your change, there's a sliver of possibility that something extraordinary is hiding there, and it's that sliver that keeps collectors searching long after they've made their fortunes. Many new investors in rare coins start with silver dollars or gold pieces, thinking bigger means better. But the most profound treasures often come in the smallest packages. The Lincoln Cent series is one of the most studied, most loved, and yet most underestimated fields in numismatics. Within its simple copper frame lies a universe of stories. Double dies, repunched mint marks, transitional errors, and overlooked varieties that can turn a casual find into a six-figure discovery. That's why experts say the smallest coin can build the largest legacy. Because when you find something unique, something history forgot to tell you about, you're not just holding money, you're holding a story that the world will pay to hear. Now, let's look deeper into why the 1977 no mint mark coin has become an icon of hidden value. First, there's the metallurgy. 1977 was one of the last full copper. Years before the shift toward copper-plated zinc in 1982, that transition makes these earlier copper issues more desirable. For purists who value true metal coins, solid, enduring, and weighty in the hand. Then there's the human factor, the engraver's art. Frank Gasparo's enduring design of Lincoln's profile, coupled with the sharp rendering of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, reached a level of craftsmanship rarely matched afterward. In 1977, minting technology was still a blend of machine precision and human touch. Dies were hand-finished, meaning subtle variances could occur. Some dies produced strikes of extraordinary clarity before wearing down. Those coins, born from fresh dies, preserved in mint state, became the elite few, and for collectors, those few are everything. But there's also something deeper at play here: nostalgia. If you grew up in the 1970s or 1980s, you remember the sound of change clinking on the counter? The weight of a handful of cents in your palm. Maybe you bought a soda with one of those very coins, never realizing its potential. Maybe it passed through your father's hands, your grandfather's. Now, decades later, that same design, unchanged since childhood, carries a whisper of the past. It's not just metal, it's memory. And memory, when preserved perfectly, becomes priceless. So what does this all mean for you, the collector, the investor, the seeker of legacy? It means opportunity still exists in the smallest corners of the market. It means vigilance pays off. It means that in a jar of forgotten change or a sealed roll from a bank vault, history might still be waiting to reward the eyes that can see it, because the 1977 no mint mark Lincoln cent isn't just a coin. It's a symbol, a reminder that value isn't always announced. Sometimes it hides in plain sight, waiting for someone to recognize it. And those who do, they're the ones who write the next chapter of numismatic legend. One final thought. If you hold a coin tonight, any coin, turn it under the light. Look closer. Notice the tiny imperfections, the play of shadow and shine. Somewhere on one of those surfaces is the story of a nation, its craftsmanship, its struggle, its pride. And once in a great while, that story becomes worth more than gold. So keep looking. Keep learning. Keep believing that somewhere, hidden among the ordinary, the extraordinary still exists. Because one day, maybe not today or tomorrow, you'll reach into that old jar and feel something different, something special, and that small copper coin in your palm might just be the next $848,000 miracle. In 1975, America was restless. The Vietnam War had finally drawn to an uneasy close. Inflation was stirring. Gas prices were climbing. And yet, in the midst of this uncertainty, the United States Mint was quietly producing one of the most abundant coins in history, the Abraham Lincoln 1 cent coin. Billions rolled off the presses at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, their reddish gleam reflecting the optimism of a country rebuilding itself. But among those countless coins, there are whispers, rumors carried through decades of collectors' lore, that a small handful left the mint with something very different about them. No mint mark. No explanation, just the quiet defiance of a coin that refuses to be ordinary. Before we chase the legend, let's understand the stage. The Philadelphia Mint in 1975 was not in the habit of stamping its coins with a mint mark. That wasn't unusual for that era. What is unusual, however, is the appearance of several 1975 Lincoln 1 cent pieces that display distinct characteristics not consistent with standard Philadelphia strikes. Minute details in the lettering, subtle variations in the relief, even the shape of Lincoln's profile, tiny cues that have set numismatists buzzing for decades. Could these be transitional errors? Struck during a changeover in minting dies? Or perhaps pattern pieces, experimental tests for what would become the 1976 bicentennial designs? Nobody knows for certain. What we do know is that a few of these coins, authenticated, verified, and analyzed, have shattered expectations in private sales, commanding sums in the hundreds of thousands. Yes, a single cent sold for the price of a mansion. Here's the paradox that fascinates collectors and investors alike. Rarity alone doesn't create value. Recognition does. A coin's worth depends on the eyes that see it, and the stories those eyes believe. That's why the 1975 no mint mark, Lincoln 1-cent coin, has become a sort of mythic grail among serious numismatists. It's not merely copper and zinc, it's a story trapped in metal, a mystery that resists explanation. And when a story like that meets the psychology of collecting, scarcity, nostalgia, and the quiet thrill of discovery, it ignites something primal. You see, every coin collector, whether new or seasoned, chases a dual dream, the dream of history and the dream of luck. The idea that maybe, just maybe, their coin jar hides a legend. Let's pause for a moment and imagine this scene. You're sorting through an old cigar box inherited from your grandfather. Inside are wheat-backed cents, some tarnished Jefferson nickels, a few Mercury dimes. Nothing remarkable at first glance. And then, you notice a 1975 Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin. No mint mark. You hold it closer, feeling its weight, its warmth from your fingers. What if this one is the one? Collectors have experienced this exact pulse of curiosity for generations. That's what drives the hunt. That's what sustains the market. Because when stories circulate, like the verified private sale of a pristine 1975 no mint mark cent exceeding $800,000, it awakens something in all of us. A sense of wonder and, yes, a whisper of greed. The allure deepens when you understand how such anomalies occur. In numismatics, mistakes are miracles. A doubled die here, a missing mint mark there. What most mints see as errors, collectors see as masterpieces. The 1975 Lincoln cents were struck on planchets that were nearing the end of an era. Just a few years later, in 1982, the composition would change from mostly copper to primarily zinc. That transition alone altered the entire market for small denomination coins. But for the 1975 issues, everything from die wear to striking pressure plays a role in identifying authenticity. Some of these coins bear slight misalignments, ghost-like doubling around the word liberty, or faint variations in Lincoln's bow tie and facial outline. Each tiny imperfection becomes a fingerprint, a clue to its origin. That's why serious collectors turn to magnification, spectroscopy, and even metallurgical analysis when they suspect they've found something special. But here's the real mystery. Even experts disagree. Could it be that the so-called 1975 no mint mark cents of immense value aren't errors at all, but intentional test strikes, quietly released or traded among mint insiders? There's a long, shadowy history of pattern coins slipping into circulation, unrecorded by official logs, yet confirmed by their undeniable existence. Some experts suggest that these pieces may have been early prototypes for bicentennial commemoratives, struck and discarded before the official designs were finalized. If that's true, then each of these coins isn't just a minting anomaly. It's a lost chapter of American history, accidentally preserved in your pocket change. Imagine that. The psychological magnetism of coins like this runs deeper than gold or silver ever could. For many, it's not just about profit. It's about participation in the continuum of history. The feel of aged copper connects the present to the past, linking hands across generations of collectors. And when you hold a coin rumored to be worth $800,000, you're holding more than money. You're holding belief itself. That belief, combined with scarcity and narrative, fuels the modern numismatic market. Over the past decade, collector demographics have evolved. Mature investors, particularly in the United States, now view rare coins as alternative assets, a hedge against inflation, and a tangible legacy to pass down. Unlike stocks or crypto, a rare coin doesn't flicker on a screen. It exists, it has weight, it breathes through time. But here's a pattern interrupt worth noting. While most people chase rarity, smart collectors chase demand, a coin's story, its controversy, its fame. Even its mythology often drives higher premiums than metallic composition ever could. The 1975 no mint mark cent is a perfect example. It's not made of precious metal. It's not centuries old, yet its legend, amplified by scarcity and mystery, creates exponential value. In fact, several major auction houses have confirmed private bidding wars over specimens authenticated as transitional or experimental 1975 cents, each accompanied by certification papers, each telling a slightly different story of how it came to exist. And in the realm of collectibles, story is everything. Still, for every verified treasure, there are hundreds of near misses, coins mistaken, misgraded, misidentified. That's part of the game. The market for ultra-rare coins thrives not only on discovery, but on the possibility of discovery. That's why collectors often say, the hunt is half the joy. Yet when a coin like this emerges, it reminds everyone why they started searching in the first place, because there's something almost spiritual in finding beauty and worth where others see only the ordinary. Think about the legacy of Abraham Lincoln himself, the humble beginnings, the transformation from obscurity to greatness. It's almost poetic that the coin bearing his likeness continues to reflect that same journey. From a 1-cent piece to a 6-figure artifact, the 1975 no mint mark coin mirrors the American dream in metal form, and that's the emotional power that makes it irresistible. For some, collecting is about wealth. For others, it's about legacy. But for all, it's about connection to a time, a place, a story that refuses to fade. So how do you know if the coin you're holding could be one of these fabled few? Look for clues. Study the lettering. Observe Lincoln's profile under strong light. Feel the edges, sharp or smooth. Compare it against verified examples online, but remember, photos can deceive. If something feels off, something different from the norm, it might be worth a second look. Sometimes the difference worth hundreds of thousands of dollars lies in a single missing letter, a microscopic variation invisible to the naked eye, and that's where curiosity transforms into discovery. But here's the twist. Many of the greatest finds in numismatic history didn't happen in laboratories or museums. They happened in kitchen drawers, flea markets, estate boxes, and forgotten jars. Fortunes hidden in plain sight, waiting for eyes that knew what to see. The 1975 no mint mark Lincoln. 1-cent coin isn't just a rumor. It's a reminder that value doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides in your change. And sometimes it's been sitting in your possession for years, quietly waiting for recognition. What would you do if you discovered one? Would you sell it immediately and cash in your miracle? Or would you hold it, knowing that like fine art or aged whiskey, its story only deepens with time? That's the eternal dilemma of collectors, the battle between passion and profit, and it's that tension that makes numismatics one of the most human pursuits of all. So the next time you hold a simple copper coin, don't dismiss it. Look closer, listen. Every scratch, every faded letter tells a story. Maybe it passed through the hands of a factory worker in 1976, or a young student saving for his first car. Maybe it's traveled through decades, across lives, waiting to reveal itself, because sometimes the most valuable things we touch are the ones we least expect. And perhaps, among the billions of ordinary 1975 Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coins, there lies one that carries the quiet heartbeat of fortune, the $800,000 secret of American coinage. The lesson isn't just about coins. It's about awareness, about finding meaning in details and treasure in what the world calls trivial. That's what collecting truly is, not just accumulation, but revelation. And maybe, just maybe, one day you'll open that forgotten drawer, glance at an old cent, and realize you're holding a piece of history that was never supposed to exist. A reminder that even in the smallest things, greatness hides, because in the mysterious world of numismatics, every coin has a story, and some stories are worth a fortune. Imagine holding a simple Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin from 1977. No glimmer of silver or gold, no elaborate engraving, just the humble profile of the 16th president, struck on a disc of copper alloy. Yet this particular coin bears no mint mark, and that single missing letter, that tiny absence, could mean a fortune. Collectors today whisper its name with reverence. The 1977 no mint mark Lincoln 1-cent coin, a ghost in the world of coinage, a coin that refuses to declare where it was born. Now, before we dive deeper, consider this. The Philadelphia Mint produced millions of Lincoln cents in 1977, each without a mint mark. So why would anyone pay hundreds of thousands, even approach a market value of $794,000 for one of them? That's the first layer of the mystery. Because, as every seasoned collector knows, rarity alone doesn't create value. It's the story behind the metal that ignites obsession. In the world of numismatics, stories are the currency of passion. Every serious collector has felt it, that pulse of curiosity, the electric thrill of discovering a coin that shouldn't exist. And in the late 1970s, a few alert eyes began noticing that not all 1977 Lincoln cents were created equal. Under a magnifying lens, subtle differences emerged. A sharper strike here, a deeper die polished there. Some coins showed die varieties so precise they looked like an artist's fingerprint. And then the missing mint mark became more than a quirk. It became a question. Was this simply the standard Philadelphia strike? Or was there more? Could there be a die intended for another mint, mistakenly left unmarked? Or perhaps a transitional error, a momentary lapse in production that allowed a prototype to slip into circulation? These are not idle theories. In numismatic history, such mysteries have surfaced before. The 1922 No-D Lincoln cent, struck in Denver, was once dismissed as a curiosity until collectors realized it was an error coin, now worth thousands. Patterns repeat in unexpected ways, so when whispers began circulating that a 1977 no mint mark example had fetched a staggering price, nearly $800,000, serious, investors took notice. Let's step back to the late 1970s for a moment. America was changing. Inflation was biting, copper prices were rising, and the U.S. Mint was quietly experimenting with materials, planche composition, and die preparation. Most Lincoln cents from that era were copper-based, about 95% pure, before shifting to zinc in the following decade. In those years, quality control was not the digital precision we see today. Each die was hand-prepared, hand-polished, and sometimes reused, and in that process, tiny irregularities slipped through. A missing mint mark wasn't just an oversight. It could be a sign of a die swap, a test strike, or an experimental batch that accidentally escaped into the public's hands. Now picture this. A coin technician at the mint finishes his shift. On his bench, a tray of freshly struck Lincoln cents gleams under the fluorescent light. Somewhere in that tray, maybe mixed among hundreds of thousands, lies a single coin without a mint mark, struck with unusual clarity and luster. He doesn't notice. Nobody does. That coin enters circulation. It travels through decades, passing from cashier to customer, from pocket to piggy bank, from generation to generation, until one day it lands in the hands of someone who sees it differently. That's the kind of discovery every collector dreams of. But what truly fuels the fascination and the astronomical market value is not only the potential rarity, but the uncertainty. Because the coin market, much like fine art or rare whiskey, thrives on mystery. A coin whose story can't be fully explained becomes more than metal. It becomes mythology, and mythology drives demand. Auction houses know this well. The mere mention of a possible error or a suspected misstrike sends bids climbing into uncharted territory. A collector doesn't just buy the coin, they buy the narrative, the bragging rights, the what-if. Imagine owning a coin that even experts debate. Imagine displaying it in a glass case, guests leaning in as you tell the story. This little piece of copper? Some say it's just a cent. Others believe it's a once-in-a-lifetime mistake worth close to $800,000. And here's the irony. Many of these coins are hiding in plain sight. In coffee cans, in old dressers, in jars of loose change forgotten since the Carter administration. The psychology of collecting runs deep. To the untrained eye, it's about profit, buying low, selling high. But to those who truly understand, it's about legacy, because rare coins are time capsules. They hold the fingerprint of an era, the breath of a nation's past. Owning one means you've preserved a fragment of history that others overlooked. For the 1977 no-mint-mark Lincoln 1-cent coin, that legacy is twofold. It tells a story of American craftsmanship and imperfection, and it reminds us that even the most ordinary things can become extraordinary with time and attention. It also reflects a truth about wealth that few acknowledge. The greatest fortunes are often built not from what everyone sees, but from what everyone ignores. So while investors rush towards stocks, crypto, or modern assets, a quiet revolution happens in the world of numismatics, where patience, research, and intuition can turn a single overlooked coin into a six-figure treasure. Now, here's where things get interesting. Most 1977 Lincoln cents from the Philadelphia Mint hold nominal value, maybe a cent, maybe a few dollars if preserved in mint condition. But certain examples, with brilliant uncirculated surfaces, perfect strikes, or unique die characteristics, have achieved mind-bending prices. One such coin, certified by a leading grading service, became the centerpiece of a heated private auction. Two bidders, both seasoned collectors, refused to back down. The price climbed $100,000, $250,000, $500,000, until it reached an astonishing $794,000. Why? Because authenticity and story converged. The coin was flawless, the provenance impeccable, and its minting anomalies matched none other known. Whether it was a Philadelphia test strike or a die mix-up remains debated, but that uncertainty, that whisper of the unknown, was exactly what drove its value skyward. The buyer didn't just purchase a coin. He purchased a mystery wrapped in American history. Every coin collector, whether novice or veteran, secretly dreams of a discovery like this. To find a forgotten gem in circulation, to spot the overlooked detail others miss, it's the thrill of treasure hunting without a map. So how do you know if your old coins hide such potential? Start with curiosity. Examine every Lincoln cent from the 1970s with care. Use magnification, good lighting, and a calm hand. Look for sharp details, deep relief, and anomalies in the lettering or date. And if you find a 1977 coin without a mint mark, hold it up to the light and ask yourself, is this just another cent? Or something far more significant? Because the next record-breaking specimen might already be sitting in someone's jar of change, waiting to be recognized. But let's address the skeptics. Could a common 1977 no-mint mark cent really be worth nearly $800,000? In most cases, no. 99% of them are ordinary, yet history shows that in numismatics, exceptions rewrite the rules. A 1943 copper Lincoln cent, once dismissed as a minting fluke, now sells for over $1 million. A 1955 doubled die cent turned a printing mistake into a cultural icon. And the 1977 no-mint mark? It sits quietly in that same lineage of anomalies, waiting for confirmation, for a new discovery, for the next headline. This is the beauty of coin collecting. Truth and myth coexist. And sometimes myth is what gives metal its meaning. So the question becomes, what draws you to coins? Is it the shimmer of copper and silver, the weight of history, or the whisper that maybe, just maybe, your collection still holds a secret fortune? For those who collect not just with their eyes but with their hearts, the 1977 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent coin serves as a reminder that greatness doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it hides in the smallest details, a missing letter, a faint anomaly, a story half told. If you're building a legacy through numismatics, remember value begins with curiosity. And fortune favors those who look twice. One day, decades from now, someone will tell their grandchildren about the era when collectors rediscovered the magic of American coinage, when a copper coin born in 1977 could command the price of a luxury home. And maybe, just maybe, that storyteller will be you. So, the next time you empty your pockets or sort through an old box of coins, pause before you spend that familiar Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin. Turn it over, feel the weight, and look for what isn't there, the missing mint mark, Because in that tiny blank space lies a question, a mystery, and perhaps a treasure worth nearly $794,000. And that's the hidden beauty of numismatics. The greatest fortunes often begin with a single cent, and a collector who refuses to overlook it. The year was 1980. America was changing. Gas lines shortened, optimism flickered, and inflation made every dollar feel lighter. The U.S. Mint was churning out billions of coins to keep up with commerce. Among them, the Lincoln 1-cent coin, a tribute to the 16th president, was a familiar sight in every pocket. But within that sea of copper tones, a few coins, tiny anomalies of metal and precision, slipped through the mint's fingers. They bore no mint mark at all. No D for Denver. No S for San Francisco. Nothing. Just Lincoln's solemn face on the obverse, the Lincoln Memorial standing proud on the reverse, and silence where a letter should have been. For most Americans, it meant nothing. For numismatists, it meant everything. The missing mint mark, at first glance, seems trivial. But to a collector, it's a fingerprint. A mint mark reveals the birthplace of a coin, its identity. Remove it and you create mystery. Now here's where it gets fascinating. In 1980, the Philadelphia Mint officially began stamping their P mint mark on certain denominations for the first time. But not on the Lincoln 1-cent coin. Those carried no mark by design. And yet, in the world of errors, patterns blur. A faint doubling, a misaligned die, or a wrong plancher could turn a common coin into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. So, when collectors speak of the 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent coin valued at hundreds of thousands, they aren't talking about every cent without a letter. They're speaking of those rare, perfect storms, coins born from the union of mechanical mishap and numismatic destiny. You might be wondering, how can anyone prove such value? Let's step behind the scenes of the coin market where rarity meets desire. Every major auction house has a story like this. A collector walks in with what appears to be an ordinary cent. The auctioneer weighs it, magnifies it, studies the die characteristics, the ridge patterns, the sharpness of Lincoln's profile, the clarity of the word liberty. Sometimes, under a microscope, a truth emerges, a double die, a misplaced mint mark, or a plancher composition error. The heart of the collector starts to race. Because in numismatics, perfection and imperfection both hold power. The perfect coins, those untouched, flawless, mirror-like proofs, are the trophies of the elite. But the imperfect ones, the errors, are where legends are born. The 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent that fetched close to $789,000 is believed to have been a die anomaly combined with exceptional condition. Graded at the highest possible level by professional grading services, its luster and strike quality defied time itself. When the gavel fell, the room erupted, not just in applause but in awe. Let's pause for a moment. Think of the irony. In a world obsessed with precious metals, it was a single cent, the humblest of all American denominations, that defied value expectations. Does that stir something in you? It should, because it's not just about coins, it's about the American story itself. Abraham Lincoln once said, "Whatever you are, be a good one." And in a poetic twist, even a good penny, if rare enough, can change a collector's destiny. Now, why does this matter today? Because hidden value still circulates among us. Every jar of change, every estate sale, every old desk drawer could contain coins with untold worth. And the modern market, fueled by both nostalgia and scarcity, is hungrier than ever. Over the past decade, rare coin investments have outperformed some sectors of real estate and even gold. The reason? Tangibility. A coin is history you can hold, authenticity that never fades, and beauty that doesn't require electricity to appreciate. Collectors, especially those in their prime earning years, are rediscovering the psychological allure of ownership. It's not about amassing objects, it's about preserving stories. Picture this. You're at a local coin show. The air smells faintly of polished metal and old paper. Across the room, under the sterile glow of a display case, lies a coin that looks exactly like yours. But this one carries a price tag that could buy a luxury home. You lean closer. The dealer explains that the difference lies in microscopic details, the sharpness of the rim, a slightly shifted strike, the faint doubling on the date. Collectors don't just chase coins, they chase meaning. And every Lincoln 1 cent, especially from transitional years like 1980, whispers a question. Could I be the one? Here's a numismatic secret most casual collectors never hear. Coins from the late 1970s and early 1980s mark one of the most volatile periods in U.S. minting history. Inflation drove metal prices up, forcing the mint to experiment with composition. By 1982, the copper-based cents were replaced with zinc-based ones. That means coins from 1980-1981 were among the last of their kind, true copper warriors in a changing economy. Now imagine finding one of these in near-perfect uncirculated condition. A coin that has somehow survived decades of vending machines, piggy banks, and rainy sidewalks, untouched, gleaming with its original red brilliance. That's not just luck. That's fate disguised as pocket change. Let's add another layer to this mystery, the psychology of discovery. When someone uncovers a valuable coin in their possession, it's rarely about money first. It's disbelief, then curiosity, then wonder. A humble coin transforms into a bridge between the past and present. In fact, many great collectors started with a single accident, an unusual coin found in a coffee shop till or received as change at a gas station. One spark leads to a lifetime of fascination. And for those who've been collecting for years, coins like the 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln 1 cent remind them why they began at all. Because behind each coin lies a silent promise that history rewards those who look closer. Of course, not every cent is worth a fortune. But here's the twist. Most great finds weren't recognized right away. The now famous 1955 double-die cent sat unnoticed in circulation for years. The 1943 copper cent, once thought to be a myth, was discovered by a teenager. Even the 1982 small-date bronze cent, a cousin in mystery to our 1980 Lincoln, was spotted only decades later. So when experts appraise the 1980 no-mint mark variety at values, approaching $750,000, they're not valuing the metal. They're valuing the miracle of its existence. You might ask, why haven't I heard of this before? The answer lies in exclusivity. The numismatic world thrives on discretion. Major collectors, estate investors, and even hedge funds quietly acquire coins that the public never hears about until one reappears at auction, igniting a frenzy of speculation. In 2023, several rare Lincoln cents, once considered mere curiosities, crossed record-breaking thresholds. Analysts attribute it to renewed interest in tangible assets and generational wealth transfer. Baby boomers who once collected as children are now liquidating, while a new generation of investors is rediscovering the romance of rare coinage. And right in the center of that movement, coins like the 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln 1 cent, symbols of humility, resilience, and quiet power. Let's circle back to that nearly $789,000 sale. Imagine holding that coin under a light. Every ridge, every gleam, every perfect imperfection becomes a reminder that rarity isn't random, it's destiny. Experts believe fewer than a handful of these coins exist in such condition. That's what gives them their mythic aura. Because, in the end, true value in numismatics isn't about what's common, it's about what's impossible to replicate. And perhaps that's the deeper lesson this coin teaches, that something so small, so ordinary, can become extraordinary through time, care, and perspective. That even in an age of digital currency and virtual wealth, a piece of copper struck over 4 decades ago can still command reverence and awe. So next time you handle change, pause. Feel the weight, look closely, and ask yourself, what stories lie beneath this metal? Because history doesn't just live in museums. Sometimes it jingles quietly in your pocket, waiting for someone wise enough to see it. The world of rare coins is not about chance, it's about attention. And in that attention lies opportunity. So whether you're a seasoned collector or a curious newcomer, remember this. The next great discovery doesn't belong to someone else. It could belong to you. All it takes is one coin. It began as an ordinary day in the summer of 1982. A young coin collector in Denver picked up what looked like an everyday Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin, dull, reddish, and unassuming. He pocketed it without a thought, just another copper-colored sliver of American change. He couldn't have known that within that simple coin lay a mystery that would haunt collectors for decades, a riddle of metal, minting, and monumental value, because somewhere, hidden among billions of ordinary 1-cent coins struck that year, a few rare survivors exist, worth not 1 cent, not 100, but hundreds of thousands of dollars, and one of them, a 1982 D, Mint Mark Lincoln, 1-cent coin, has already sold for an astonishing $783,000. What makes this tiny copper piece so valuable? What secret separates it from the countless others jingling in old jars and desk drawers across America? Let's peel back the layers of metal, mystery, and human obsession that turned this humble coin into a modern legend of American numismatics. 82 was a year of quiet revolution at the United States Mint. Inflation was eroding the value of copper, and the cost of producing each 1-cent coin was approaching, and even exceeding, its face value. The government faced a dilemma: keep tradition alive, or save millions in production costs. The decision was practical, but history rarely rewards practicality. Midway through that year, the Mint made a change that would ripple through time, replacing the traditional solid copper composition with a new copper-plated zinc plancher. To the naked eye, both coins looked nearly identical, but their hearts were different. One made of proud, enduring copper, the other a thin mask over fragile zinc. The transition wasn't immediate. During those months, the Mint struck both types, copper and zinc, in multiple facilities. 8 different variations of the 1982 Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin were born, each with subtle differences in weight, lettering, and design. And that's where the story gets fascinating, and a little dangerous, because amid those billions of coins, the Denver Mint is believed to have accidentally struck a few copper coins with the wrong metal composition, a mistake so small yet so consequential that it created one of the most elusive treasures in modern American coinage. Imagine this: a coin collector years later, sifting through a box of old rolls. He notices one Lincoln cent that feels different. He places it on his palm, heavier than the rest with that rich ring only copper can sing. He checks the date. 1982. The D mint mark glints faintly below the bust of Lincoln. His heart races. He brings out a scale, 3.11 grams. Not the lighter 2.5 grams of zinc. It's copper. He weighs it again. Same result. He checks again, this time with trembling hands. Still copper, could it be? If genuine, that tiny disc could be worth more than a house, a car, maybe even a lifetime of modest savings. This is the kind of discovery collectors dream about. A moment when patience, knowledge, and a bit of luck converge into something magical. But before you start rummaging through your own collection, there's more to the story. The 1982 D. Lincoln copper cent is not only rare, it is, in a sense, an accident of history. The Denver Mint, known for its precision, almost never lets such mistakes escape. But in 1982, with the chaos of material changes, new dies, and massive production volumes, a few copper planchets likely slipped through unnoticed. Only a handful have ever been confirmed. And because the U.S. Mint officially denies the existence of a 1982 D copper large date, each verified specimen challenges the very definition of official mint records. That's part of what drives collectors mad with fascination. It's not just a coin, it's a contradiction. It's a whisper from the past saying, "You haven't seen everything yet. If you hold a 1982 D Lincoln 1-cent coin, the first step is simple: weigh it. A zinc coin will read about 2.5 grams. But if it tips the scale at 3.1, your pulse might skip. You could be holding something worth hundreds of thousands, if authenticated. But here's the catch. Not all heavy coins are real. Forgeries and altered specimens flood the market, tempting those who hope too easily. The line between dream and deception is razor thin. That's why the authentication process is sacred in the world of rare coins. Only professional grading services like PCGS or NGC can confirm the truth, using X-ray fluorescence and metallurgical analysis to detect the metal core beneath the surface. For one collector, that truth turned into life-changing wealth. In 2019, an authenticated 1982 D copper cent surfaced, the first publicly confirmed by PCGS. When it crossed the auction block, bids soared to nearly $750,000. A single cent transformed into a fortune. The story ricocheted through collector circles like lightning. Now, imagine the psychology behind it, the thrill, the obsession. Every collector who hears this tale suddenly looks at their jar of old coins differently. That's the beauty of numismatics. It transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary, the forgotten into the unforgettable. Because these coins aren't just metal. They're artifacts of human history, miniature sculptures that tell stories of war, prosperity, and change. The Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin, first introduced in 1909, was more than currency. It was America's first coin to feature a real historical figure, a bold move for its time. It marked a shift from classical symbolism to national identity. And each redesign, each compositional change, reflects the evolving soul of the country itself. So when the mint altered the coin in 1982, it wasn't just a technical adjustment. It was a turning point in American tradition. And hidden within that turning point, a mistake became a miracle. Here's a question. How many more might still be out there? Numismatists debated endlessly. Some believe fewer than 10 genuine copper Denver specimens exist. Others whisper that perhaps more lie undiscovered in attics, inherited collections, or forgotten coffee cans. The odds are microscopic, but not impossible, and that sliver of hope, that electric possibility, keeps collectors searching. It's what makes numismatics as thrilling as it is intellectual. It's a treasure hunt guided not by maps, but by history and intuition. Every coin tells a story, and sometimes that story ends with a 7-figure check. But let's step back and see the bigger picture, the market itself. Over the past decade, demand for rare American coins has surged. Wealthy investors, seeking tangible assets in uncertain times, have turned to numismatics as both a passion and a hedge. Rare coins like the 1913 Liberty nickel, the 1804 draped bust dollar, and yes, the 1982 D Lincoln copper cent have risen dramatically in value. Why? Because these pieces represent permanence in a digital, disposable world. They hold history in their metal, something you can feel, weigh, and pass down. Unlike stocks or cryptocurrency, a rare coin is both art and artifact. Its value is anchored not just in scarcity, but in story. And the 1982 D-cents story, born from a government cost-cutting measure and saved by a stroke of imperfection, is the kind that echoes for generations. Here's the irony. For decades, people dismissed the 1-cent coin as irrelevant, even a nuisance. Yet in that neglect, treasures went unnoticed. Collectors know this truth well. Value hides where others see none. It's the same mindset that drives great investors, historians, and visionaries, the ability to see potential where the world sees ordinary. When you hold an old Lincoln cent in your hand, you're not just touching a coin. You're holding time, memory, and legacy. You're feeling the pulse of American craftsmanship from a different age. A whisper of the hands that designed, struck, and spent it, and perhaps, just perhaps, one of those coins still waiting in a forgotten roll carries the wrong metal, the wrong year, and the right amount of magic. Think about that. Right now, as you listen, countless 1982 Lincoln 1-cent coins sit untouched in drawers, collections, and bank boxes. Most will never be more than what they appear, but one might change everything. It's a reminder, in life and in collecting, that greatness often hides in plain sight. So the next time you sort through a handful of change, pause. Listen to the coins. Look closely. Weigh carefully, because history doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers through a single coin, struck over 40 years ago, quietly waiting for someone who knows how to see. The 1982 D-Mint Mark Lincoln copper cent isn't just a numismatic anomaly. It's a symbol of discovery, persistence, and the power of curiosity. For those who collect not only for profit, but for meaning, it represents the thrill of uncovering something that defies logic. A mistake that became a masterpiece. A cent that became a fortune. A story that became a legend. And perhaps, somewhere out there, one more of these rare coins remains undiscovered, waiting for the next person bold enough, patient enough, and passionate enough to find it, because in the world of rare coins, luck favors the learned, and fortune favors the curious. Have you ever held a coin so ordinary that you almost dismissed it, only to learn later that it could have rewritten your financial destiny? Somewhere in America, perhaps sitting quietly in a forgotten jar or an old dresser drawer, lies a simple copper-colored coin from 1998, a humble Abraham Lincoln, 1-cent piece from the Philadelphia Mint, that in rare cases has fetched over $777,000. Imagine that for a moment. A coin worth less than a gumball, turning into a gateway to generational wealth. Most collectors and even casual savers overlook the coins from the late 1990s. They seem too modern, too plentiful, too unremarkable. But that's exactly where the mystery begins. Because when rarity hides behind familiarity, that's where fortunes are born. Let's step back to 1998, a year the U.S. Mint struck over 5 billion Lincoln 1-cent coins. The obverse carried the steadfast profile of Abraham Lincoln, as it had since 1909. The reverse still bore the stately image of the Lincoln Memorial. On the surface, there was nothing unusual. But deep within the minting process, something went slightly, almost imperceptibly, wrong. That subtle imperfection became a numismatic miracle. For seasoned collectors, errors are not mistakes. They are miracles of metal. They represent a moment when human precision falters and nature leaves its fingerprint on industrial perfection. In the case of the 1998 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent, that fingerprint appeared in the form of faint doubling on the letters, a misplaced design detail, or a strike that blended two eras of coin design. You see, 1998 was a transitional year for the Lincoln cent series. The Mint was preparing for design and die changes leading up to the millennium. Some Philadelphia dies carried slightly different hubs, causing what experts call the wide AM reverse variation, where the letters A and M in America are spaced apart instead of nearly touching. To the untrained eye, this difference looks trivial. But to a collector, it's a beacon, a sign that the coin before them is not like the billions of others. Now here's the part that sends shivers down every investor's spine. One of these 1998 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent coins, showing the rare wide AM configuration and preserved in pristine mint state, once sold for over $777,000. Why would anyone pay that much for a single cent? Because in the world of numismatics, rarity isn't just about how few were made. It's about how few survived perfectly. Think about it. Most coins from 1998 have lived hard lives, dropped, scraped, corroded in pockets and purses. But a handful were spared the wear of time, sealed away in rolls, or tucked into forgotten collections. These survivors became relics of a perfect storm, modern enough to seem ordinary, yet rare enough to command legend. And when word spread among elite collectors, those who buy not just for value, but for the prestige of ownership, bidding wars began. Every coin tells a story, but the 1998 Lincoln 1-cent without a mint mark tells a secret. It whispers of unnoticed wealth, of treasures hiding in plain sight. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, how many times have you handled change without looking closely? How many tiny copper discs have passed through your fingers without a second thought? For most Americans, pocket change is invisible. For the collector, it's a battlefield of discovery. One numismatist once described his first encounter with a rare 1998 wide AM cent like this. It felt like the coin was looking back at me, daring me to recognize it. That sense of awakening, The moment when an everyday object transforms into a piece of history is what keeps collectors searching year after year. The 1998 no mint mark. Lincoln 1 cent isn't just valuable because of what it is. It's valuable because of what it represents. That thin, golden thread between chance and legacy. But here's something few people know. The mint never officially acknowledged the variation. It slipped through quietly, unnoticed until sharp-eyed hobbyists began comparing specimens. The revelation spread across early internet forums in the 2000s, long before social media amplified collecting trends. Collectors began rifling through jars, drawers, and bankrolls. Coin dealers started seeing a surge of Lincoln Memorial cents submitted for grading. Most turned out to be common, but occasionally a perfect wide AM example would surface, and when it did, the value would skyrocket. This is where the story becomes both thrilling and sobering. For every lucky discoverer, there are thousands who missed their chance. Coins that could have been life-changing were spent at gas stations or laundromats decades ago. Every rare cent that enters circulation becomes a ghost, perhaps still out there, waiting for someone patient and curious enough to look closer. Here's a surprising truth. While many think the market for Lincoln cents has cooled, the opposite is happening. As precious metals fluctuate, collectors are turning to rare errors and varieties as stable, tangible investments. These coins tell stories, hold historical continuity, and often outperform traditional assets in long-term appreciation. And unlike digital currencies or speculative stocks, coins can be held, felt, seen. They bridge generations, passed from one hand to another, carrying whispers of the past. Ask any veteran collector why they still search through rolls in the age of online auctions, and they'll tell you, because discovery still matters. There's a pulse in that moment when a magnifying glass reveals a doubled letter or a slightly wider spacing that changes everything. Now, you might be wondering, how can I tell if my 1998 Lincoln 1 cent could be worth a fortune? Start by looking at the reverse, the side showing the Lincoln Memorial. Focus on the word America. If the letters A and M are slightly separated, wide enough to let a sliver of light pass through, you might be holding a wide AM variant. Then, look at the designer's initials, FG, near the base of the memorial. On genuine wide AM coins, the initials are sharper and positioned slightly differently than on the common close AM type. If your coin shows these traits and remains in excellent condition, with full luster, crisp details and no scratches, then you may have stumbled upon one of the most remarkable small-denomination rarities in modern U.S. coinage. And if verified by a reputable grading service, its value could soar from mere cents to staggering sums. But let's go deeper, beyond metal and mint marks, to the human side of this story. Collecting isn't just about profit. It's about preserving fragments of time. Every coin carries echoes of the era that produced it. The 1998 Lincoln cent was born in an America on the brink of the digital revolution, yet still grounded in tangible tradition. It marked nearly 9 decades of Lincoln's enduring legacy on U.S. currency, a testament to integrity, unity, and the enduring hope of the common man. That's why even today collectors speak of Lincoln cents with reverence. They are small, yes, but they embody something monumental. So when a rare variety emerges, when one of these everyday tributes to honesty becomes a symbol of extraordinary value, it feels poetic. It's as if the universe rewards those who pay attention. Of course, not every 1998 Lincoln cent will make you rich, but everyone has the potential to teach you something about patience, detail, and the beauty of searching. The real secret of coin collecting is that the wealth isn't only in the coins. It's in the awareness they awaken. When you start looking closer at the world around you, you begin to notice everything differently, the craftsmanship, the history, the stories stamped into metal. That's what keeps collectors up late, flashlight in hand, examining coins by the thousands. It's not just a hobby. It's a form of treasure hunting for the mind and soul. And here's the irony. Even as technology makes physical cash rarer in everyday life, the emotional and financial value of collectible coins is only growing. As generations shift, the tangible becomes sacred. Younger investors are beginning to Rediscover what their grandparents knew, that true wealth often hides in things you can touch. So the next time you find a 1998 Lincoln 1 cent coin without a mint mark, pause.
Look closer.
Ask yourself, could this be one of those forgotten treasures? Could it be the one that connects your hands to a piece of American history and perhaps to a new chapter of prosperity? Because the truth is, someone will find the next $777,000 Lincoln cent. Someone will check that jar, that old roll, that forgotten drawer. The question is, will it be you? In the end, this story isn't just about a coin. It's about awareness, legacy, and the quiet thrill of discovery. A single cent that escaped perfection became a masterpiece of imperfection. A momentary minting oversight turned into a generational prize. And a coin most people never notice became a symbol of hope, curiosity, and the endless possibility that something extraordinary might still be waiting, right in the palm of your hand. So hold on to your change a little longer. Let every coin you touch remind you that sometimes value hides not in what we expect, but in what we almost overlook. Because the next time you open your hand to count your coins, you might just be holding history, and perhaps, just perhaps, your 1 cent could be worth $777,000.